We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. This is Cheryl from Dja country. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Cheryl Downs. This is episode 72 of Beyond 90, the podcast. With me today, I've got Eric and Madge, who have probably got very different perspective on what's going to happen in the dub this season. But to kick off with, we probably won't talk so much about the dub. We'll talk about that game that, we'll talk about that game. I don't know how often we'll call it that, but anyway, it brought back memories for me of 2015 in the group match between, let's just say, Hope Solo and the Matildas, as opposed to the USA and the Matildas. But anyway, as we usually start our podcast, let's talk a little bit of a history lesson to kick off with. So we're up to episode 72, which means Cap 72, Jackie Hadden. Now, I was fortunate enough to spend a little bit of time with some of the Matildas alumni over the weekend during the game, or after the game, I suppose it was. And there are a bunch of them there, great players, very excited to see them, and makes me think that I really need to get back to all the players that we've missed to this point. But Jackie Hadden was someone who might not ring too many bells for people. She only played 2 matches, only one of which was an A international match. But she appeared after when there was a 3-year gap of a whole bunch of debutants in 1991. And Jackie was the first of the players who appeared in 1994. And I think that's probably a bit of a segue for us later as well, to talk about how many debutants we're seeing right now in the Matildas squad coming through, and not having that 3 years sort of locked in, no change to the team, which would be perfect if you got a perfect team, but there's plenty of work to do. So anyway, Jackie made her debut in 1994 against Russia, of all countries. And Eric might quite like this. Jackie played for Blacktown in her pathway to representative football, including winning the Dana Cup in 1993 as an under-19 representative. So shout out to the Dana Cup, which goes on very strongly these days. And I said she played twice for the Matildas, and she went on to play college football in the USA as well. So shout out to Jackie Hadden. Thank you for being part of the Matildas journey and the history, and you're part of what the Matildas have been able to become today by taking them along that pathway. Anyway, that's it.
I'm wondering, maybe hoping that I might have the right kit on as well, because this is around about 94.
Oh, hang on. There's Cheryl linked to it. Oh, I think you're looking good there, Matt.
Yeah, it's definitely like the 94 era.
Yeah. What Cheryl's linked to, there's a photograph. It looks like your kit.
Yay! I did it on purpose.
Wow, very nice. Can you tell us a story about the kit?
This is more Socceroos heartache. The reason
that era is.
We'll ignore that.
Much heartache. Yeah.
It's about Jackie's debut.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. All right. Well, there you go. We've got a bit of a kit for you to look at if you're watching the video, but we do have a good link there to Grassroots Football, the Grassroots Football Project, that you can see a couple of photos there for Jackie as well. And I tend to get quite a bit of my information, kind of from Wikipedia, which is a little bit dangerous, but such is the history of the Matildas that there isn't really a lot of information out there. So it can be a challenge, but there's also a book that I've got on my coffee table over there. It's the Encyclopedia of the Matildas, which is a good volume. I think occasionally there are some mistakes in there. I've seen pictures, and I can't remember if it was someone like Alana Kennedy and they said it was, I don't know, Claire Polkinghorne. I've made that up, but something like that. And I do understand that there will be a revision of the book in a couple of years, maybe 2023. So I'll have to think to myself whether or not I want an updated version, because in that time frame, quite a number of Matildas have been debuting, so it will be a bigger book, and it might also have certainly corrected those bits and pieces, but a bit more information on some of the players. So they've done a huge amount of work to put that out, and makes me think that we need to get back to our book club and talk about those sorts of things too. Oh, look, reminiscing. Let's reminisce about Saturday. What a day. Madge, you would have watched it on TV, I'm assuming. bit of a different experience than being at the ground. What was the coverage like? Because I was lucky enough to run into Grace Gill as well and had a chat to her. And when you're at the game, you do miss that analysis and, lots of different angles to recreate things.
Yeah, I mean, we had a bit of a watch party in Brisbane and had a few people watching it at a burger pub place that we've got. So we had the pre-game up, and I thought the coverage was really great. Grace and Georgia, and I think they had Tom in there as well, and they had Vicky Linton at halftime, which was was really great. A couple of pronunciation things that we picked up from one of the commentators was probably the main gripe.
Give us the details.
Pronouncing Tegan Micah as Tegan Mika. But I think someone corrected him sort of halfway through, but yeah, that's okay. We'll get there. Beautiful. We got a really good replay of the penalty, which yes, that had us very angry in the pub. So
let's talk about the penalty then, because I think that, I mean, whilst it doesn't go in the linear form of the game, I mean, it did put the game seemingly out of the grasp of the Matildas. And watching it from the venue, there was one big screen that was working, and I feel like we only got the one angle, and it was hard to tell. So in those circumstances, the referee was right there, and as a spectator, you'd love to say, nah, it wasn't the Matildas, definitely bad call, but the referee was there, better spot than me, amazing at their jobs. So yeah, you tell me what you could see on the replay. I agree.
I mean, there was a lot going on in the box, but then there was one really good angle. So thanks to Paramount for that. So we got to get a great angle on the penalty. But yeah, so it was a front-on angle. There really wasn't much. If there was contact, it wasn't much at all. I think Haram was on the way down just from some pretty minor jostling in the box. So, but but like you said, that happens in the game. So it's I wouldn't. This is one we can go into a VAR discussion. I'd rather cop one of them occasionally than have VAR coming in and re-refereeing the game. So yeah, I'm happy to cop an occasional one of those. Just be angry about it for a while, complain about it on a podcast, and move on.
Yep. And Eric, you were in the media box. Was there some conversation in the media box? Were there different replays that you had access to?
The people that had watching the stream as well, which is always on a little bit of a delay, there was initial consternation, I think is the right word, but then everyone agreed after seeing the replay, probably a penalty, softish, but probably a penalty. Also, speaking of angles, our own Kelly Lemon, who was shooting the game, was at that end of the ground and managed to catch Ellie Carpenter making contact in the act, so to speak.
Okay, so even more angles.
Yes.
All of them.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. That was one of the goals. The first goal is probably something, and I'll tell a little backstory here. I was sitting with a bunch of friends, which for me was quite different to actually have a fan experience as opposed to being in the media box. So I really actually enjoyed that, and shout out to my mates that I was able to sit there and watch the game with. One of those people was Sarah Groob, and Groob said to me, Shez, have you got the team sheet? And I didn't, because I was sitting there having myself a fan experience, but I know some people in the media. So I pinged Eric. I'm like, Eric, send me the team sheet. And he does. And of course, I'm busy on my phone during all this time and sending it through. And then that's when the goal was scored. So to me, it kind of didn't count because I didn't see it at all. I mean, I saw the replay, and immediately our reactions tend to be, the defense let us down. And I'm not sure, I'm never sure that that's the case. I sort of think, well, they're just the last line, but what happened preceding all of that? And I think you could argue that there are a couple of touches that we should have done better, and we should have done that better all game. And then there was certainly at the very end of it, there was, players tracking behind our defenders. So that's probably what split the margins. But yeah, thoughts on the first goal? How do we prevent it next time is the learning opportunity that we need to take out of that.
Yeah, so I'm like you. I was busy preparing a wise sending a team sheet and trying to prepare a wise kickoff tweet, and then for Beyond 90 Twitter, and then they scored. So I think we'll need to defer to Madge on this one. But I agree with the general point about look after the ball better, and then you're putting your defenders under pressure less often.
Yeah, I mean, I think I totally agree. I think I read one analysis, because I'm the same. I was settling in the pub. We were chatting. We were having a good time. Then all of a sudden we'd been scored on. But I think a couple of people have said that, there was that impetus of some players to like play forward and sort of like get on the attack immediately, as opposed to like controlling the ball. All of a sudden they're pressing hard and putting the pressure on. And and then that just puts the defense under pressure. Don't quite get that clean header away out of defense, and then and they can pounce and attack. So it's one of those things where maybe if you've got a few debutants in there and it's blooding a few new players, maybe being a little more conservative at the start of the game might be the way to go.
And I wonder if that was partly the USA's approach that put the pressure on the debutants, force an error. And, we talk about maybe more whether or not it's an error or whatnot, but it's genuine pressure, and turnovers do happen in games. And effectively it was a little bit of that and a little bit of positioning and all a little bit new. So, but overall.
Well, I mean, it was a looping ball, and it's like, and they're always hard to sort of head out of defense as well. So it was like sort of a floating ball that came in, and you just don't quite get the angles right to get the power behind it to clear it past the attacking players. And, that's what can happen.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, let's talk about maybe the goal that did count, the one that we all saw, and there was no definitive conversation about it. I mean, there was a lot of pressure coming from the US. They were breaking through the midfield at will. They were sort of using their pace pretty well, but I think overall, I felt that the Matildas, after reflecting for a couple of days, don't get me wrong, I felt like the Matildas didn't do too badly. And certainly statistically, they didn't do too badly. And I definitely want to win. So I'm the fan out there who sits there and every win is what we need. But in terms of some of the players, so Mary Fowler, use her as an example. Now, I haven't rewatched the whole game, so I don't know whether or not it was a little bit of beer goggles or something like that. I wasn't drinking beer, but, everything that I saw her do, I really liked. And I like Mary Fowler, so hence the beer goggles. It's kind of maybe not legit praise, but I feel like what Tony Gustafsson is doing right now is he's giving these players more and more game time. And you look at someone like Mary Fowler, and in some of the earlier games that we'd seen her on, she was getting muscled off the ball. She was getting pushed off the ball. She wasn't quite as neat with her touches. And I feel like it's really improving. And if you think about that small period that's been happening in, then this whole strategy of getting as many players as possible game time leading into the Asian Cup, it seems to be paying off.
Totally agree. Because you think back to the Netherlands and the Germany games, like before the Olympics, and that's exactly what was happening. And I was feeling a little skeptical about, sort of Mary being able to cut it sort of at the international level. But then, that exposure just gives the opportunities for those players to get that one day better every time. And I hope that players like Jessika Nash sort of take the same approach from this game. It's about getting that exposure and maybe even just getting the reality check of what international football is. So you don't know what it is until you experience it. So I think you can only benefit and grow from those sorts of experiences.
Yeah. Eric, was there a pivotal moment in the game for you that you thought it was out of reach of the Matildas, or a pivotal moment that you thought, like Kaya Simon's missed opportunity, was that where we could have grasped it back and got ourselves back in the game, or was it still a good game on paper and on the ground for you?
I feel like, that was a unfortunate one for Kaya Simon there. The USA, as we all know, have this annoying habit of beating our teams. So I feel like they probably would have won if Kai had stuck that away anyway. For me, it was more the realization that gradually that US debutant keeper Casey Murphy was having a blinder. And then we were just like, we're not going to beat her, are we? And we didn't.
Yeah, I think that's well worth talking about as well, because that's where I said it, reminiscing about the 2015 Women's World Cup. It was absolutely hope solo that I think kept the USA in the game, and it ended up being, did we have a draw, or was it we lost to the USA?
3-1, I think.
But I think the number of chances that we had really could have just made the difference. Similarly for this match, if we have a look quickly at the statistics, which I've prepared earlier on a separate little tab, based on possession. So we had a good amount of possession, just rounding 60-40. So we had more possession than the US. Possession's nothing if you don't really do anything with it. You can sit in your own back line and not do much with it. So there's one part there. The US had more shots than Australia. So they had 14 shots to our 11. But in terms of on target, we had 8 on target, which I think is a really good number for us. And that illustrates how well the goalkeeping was, I suppose, compared to 6 for the US. So they didn't really have as many shots. They were putting us under pressure. But yeah, just on those couple of stats themselves, we did better. Heaps more passes. So maybe we're controlling the ball. The pass accuracy, 78% compared to 66% for the US. So I think, and Tony would be very analytical about these things. Of course, the result is one thing and a couple of key moments and whatnot, but he'd be looking at, were we completing our passes? I think that'd absolutely be a statistic. Were we taking shots? Where were we taking the shots from? Were they on target? Those sorts of things. No offsides, 7 corners. I don't even remember seeing 7 corners, but we weren't effective. And largely, I think, again, that would come down to goalkeeping. So, yeah, sucks to be us sometimes, but plenty of learning opportunities that come out of that. Any more thoughts on the game, or do you want to talk about the next game, which is just in tomorrow?
I think tomorrow should be a great game. I think, and it was fantastic that we had the record crowd there on Saturday, the 36,000 there in Sydney, but it's still a really big stadium. So I think that's something that I think we can look forward to with the Newcastle game, just being a bit more of an intimate venue, and I might expect the atmosphere should be really good for that game. We know the Newcastle public love their football. So, and, I think it looks like we'll still probably have some, probably not have Alana Kennedy and maybe not Claire Polkinghorne in defence. So we're probably still going to see, some of the young players get a run there as well. But whether or not players like Angie Beard or some of the players who didn't get on the park in this game might get rotated in there and get a bit more game time this game will be interesting to see.
Yeah. Is there any news on Claire Polkinghorne? We know that Alana Kennedy has a quad injury. We know that there was also a bug going around the squad, and that must have been a pretty fast-acting bug, because some of the players, they weren't even together until, just days before the game. So unfortunate timing, but I think Tony and the team would not necessarily be relying on those bugs as the reasons, or pointing and blaming those kind of things. The game may
type of thing that we want to be able to manage through tournament football as well. I mean, we've had in tournament football before players go down injured and haven't really had a great answer moving forward. So, I mean, if we, this is a great opportunity to test those sorts of tournament positions right now when you've got 2 of your key defenders out. Well, time to try some plan B, C, and D and see how we can execute them.
What is plan A, Eric? We've coming into tomorrow. It's the very last match that we will see of the Matildas this year. And then it's the last camp that we have leading into the Asian Cup, which starts roughly the 20th of January, the 19th or the 21st. One of those dates will be it. So we're very close to the Asian Cup, which traditionally is a very important tournament for us because it is our qualification pathway for the World Cup. This time it's less important because, we're okay. We're co-hosting it, so we should be just fine. But it's also the opportunity, if we get things right, that we could win a major trophy, which is something that the Matildas sorely need in some ways. Like, there's a lot of hype about them, but delivery is also important as well. So, Eric, plan A.
Let's see. Just from the way Tony Gustafsson speaks in post-match press conferences. Oh, by the way, Claire Polkinghorne, load management was the phrase used. So they've just decided that she basically needed to rest on Saturday. So hopefully,
I need that.
yeah, I mean, so did I after all those post-match drinks I had. But I would like, I'd like to think they didn't fly her all the way back from Sweden for her to sit in the stands for 2 games. So hopefully we see her tomorrow. But yeah, as far as the plan A, I think he's going to trust the players to go out and play the football. So the plan A, the aggressive, high pressing, blah, 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 blah. Now, whether that gets anywhere with the US remains to be seen. And I mean, I'm not like some people. I think I don't mind trying stuff. It's at the end of the day, these games count for nothing. So yeah, I'd like to see them go out there and take some risks, especially the young players.
Yeah, and you would have been very happy to see Jessika Nash out there. I was super happy as well. And such a really hard way for her to start her international career with the Matildas. But the rest of her game, and I really want her to hold her head up high. And I think, and it wasn't even the rest of her game, it was her whole game. That was a pressure situation. That was an anomaly of a really high ball and difficult to control. But I think overall, looking to the future, I think the future looks great. And I'm really happy that she's had that moment to debut here. And then from here on, it just gets better. So, on to Newcastle. Madge, is your plan A the same as TG's plan A and the same as Eric's plan A?
Oh, for me, I mean, putting the Newcastle game aside, for me, the best defensive plan is whatever the tactics are for the teams that we're playing against. So I think that involves being flexible. So, maybe a plan A for one team might be different to plan A for another team. So I think we've had this conversation before. I like having the options of, a back 4 or the back 3 with the wing backs. I like having the versatility there. I know a lot's been said about having Nash and Nevin starting as the co centre backs versus maybe pulling in a Carpenter or a Catley into those positions. But like I said, I'm also happy with trying stuff in these situations. It's because they are friendlies, and I know they count for rankings, but really we're just trying to get that experience under the belt, and the best way to get experience is to get exposed to some of the best teams in the world. So for me, I wouldn't be surprised if we see, I'd like to see an Angie Beard come into like a centre back position, or so still leave your Catleys and your Carpenters sort of out on the wings. But then, try someone like an Angie Beard instead to give her a go in that different position that she I don't think she's really done that for Matildas, but she has had experience doing that for her club team. So I think that'd be an interesting change up as well, just to see how she could work in that sort of system.
We also talked about Kayla Morrison, who is not an Aussie, but sometimes we can make these things happen, and that could be an option. But we've definitely still got options out there. Where in the picture do our I don't know how to say it, our premium Matildas or our premium, but at the far end of the premiumness, where do they come in? So KK has had long-term injury challenges. Does she feature in the Asian Cup, or is this something that we want to think about and talk about it when we get closer to the Asian Cup? And Lydia Williams, obviously, the last couple of matches, we've seen Maka out there. We've seen Tegan Micah or Mika, if depending on who's doing the commentating. We've seen those players out there as well. Is Lids's time as the starting keeper waning a little bit, but she's absolutely so incredibly valuable from a team support, and just if Lydia Williams is your backup keeper, then that's not a bad thing at all.
Yeah, just ask Arsenal. They seem to be fine with Lids as the backup. But it's a great problem to have if you have 3 top keepers. I think that's there's always going to be problems in international football. That's a good one. As regards, by the way, before I forget, Kayla Morrison now did some digging. The earliest NPL game I could find was February 2018. So, if my maths is right, she would complete her 5-year residency before the World Cup.
I like it that Eric has a plan. All yes. Good to see.
Always. All right,
We do look very, very much forward to the match tomorrow night. I'll be watching it like Madge did, or actually not like Madge did, because I'll just be at home watching it. I won't be at the pub with a burger, but I might be able to rustle up a burger. It'll be a good match to see, and good luck to the Matildas for that one. What else have we got to talk about right now? I mean, we've definitely got the dub to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
It's only 4 more sleeps until that first match. And Eric, I don't know where your heart is with the Wanderers these days, but it's the Wellington Phoenix take on, the Wanderers.
So wow, how time flies. We're back to me making ridiculous predictions again. Excellent. Just bear with me while I get the fixtures again. But yes, where my heart is, I'd just like to say big thank you to Jessika Cesar for Western Sydney Wanderers media manager, for ensuring that my media pass was at the reception when I got there to pick it up just before I came back home to do this pod. So yes, that was wonderful. And now the fixtures. So Wellington and the Wanderers, I think I'm going to stick with the good thing that I did all of last season, and that's tipping the Wanderers to lose. So on we go. I think Wellington, it's going to be a fairy tale debut for the literal children from New Zealand. I mean, have you seen their squad photos? My goodness. And because I love players scoring against their former clubs, I'd like to see a goal from Isabel Gomez on Friday in Wollongong.
Okay. All right.
That's
I don't know if I'm ready for a prediction, and round 1 is just awful sometimes to work out what's going on, but yeah, I don't know. Catherine Canuli taking the headspace in it for the Wanderers. I think I'm going to go with the Wanderers away. It's not that far away in my mind, and I don't know how Wellington are settling. I think they've got some great support in their coaching, but also around the club. They're looking at the whole player, from what I understand, and I think that's really important, particularly when you've got a young bunch. But I'm going to go for the Wanderers. Madge, your quick thoughts on that match, and then you can take us into the next match if you're happy.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm going for Wanderers as well. So it'd be great to see, it's just an occasion to see a new team, coming to the A-League Women's. So it'll be a fantastic occasion. But I think Western Sydney will should take away the win in this one. Interesting as well. I'm not sure if you guys spoke about it last week, but I think Western Sydney have got some really decent players there. So I probably wouldn't have them in my top 4 predictions for the season, but they're a really solid team. I mean, when you pick up someone like Liz Ralston in your defence, hoping that she stays nice and fit. I'm not sure how much MPL she was able.
Full season. Oh, well, as much of a season as we could get down in Sydney with Arpia Lycott.
Yep. So, I mean, they've got some great players there. So I think they'll cause some troubles this season, but maybe not top 4. But then going on to the next game, that's one I'm really interested in. So Canberra and Melbourne City. So I reckon there's going to be a really interesting game in the first round. Canberra and Melbourne City are 2 that I think are going to go quite well this season. Vying out for 3rd, 4th, 5th, not quite knowing, who might be able to pop up and battle for the 4th position. But yeah, Canberra have made some great recruits, and Melbourne City, after being by their standards, a bit disappointing last season. Getting some great. I mean, when you've got Stoddy back and Wilkinson as well, so you've got some really experienced players there, as well as some great recruits. So I think that'll be a really interesting game. I think it's Canberra at home. I'll tip Canberra for this one, but I think it'll be close.
I'll throw it to Eric for the moment, and then we've got Steffen's just jumped on, and Steffen's not only our Nordic expert, but he's our Canberra expert as well. But we'll let Eric take it away for a moment.
Just in time to hear me sound like a crazy
Say whatever
person.
You want, Eric.
So, yes, Madge, if you're excited for Canberra, Melbourne City, my goodness, this is what I'm taking leave for. I'm heading down to Canberra for the day, and so there is no way on this God's green and blue earth that I will ever tip against Melbourne City while they have the squad that they have for this season. So it's going to be a glorious victory for the light blue side of Melbourne. And I would like to see a goal from their captain, Emma Checker, against a former Canberra United player. I think that would be wonderful. What do you think, Steffen?
I think you're dreaming. G'day. Hi, everyone.
Hey, Steffen.
I'm really keen to see this game too. From the Canberra point of view, we've got 10 new players out of a squad of 17. So really fascinated to see how we set up on our side, especially around the defence area. We've lost 2 key central defenders. We've only recruited 1 from what I can see. So be interesting to see what Vicky Linton does with Lauren Keir, for example, whether she's playing in the middle with Ali Haran or is being used as a marker and out wide like she was last season. But also very excited by our forward line with the news that Ash Sykes has joined us. So I've had the privilege of seeing, Ash Sykes play in the NPL here in Canberra the last 2 years. And she's just continues to be amazing, runs around everywhere, was given a free rein by her coach both years, and is not afraid to run from deep, run diagonals right across either side of the field, confuse the defence as much as she possibly can. And Michelle's got a fair bit of that in her herself. They're both quite fond of pushing up into the 9 space, then back to the 10 and back into midfield to get the ball. And they know each other so well, obviously, from their years of playing together. That's going to be a daunting task for the defenders to track both of them. And if you add someone like Illyria Toby into the mix, it could be very interesting, I think, for opponents' opposition defences. So it'll be a good contest with Tori Tumeth and Emma Checker and them to be up against a forward line of that calibre. And I think we can expect some speedy midfielders and wingers as well on the Canberra side. So it's quite a young side. So they're going to be fit and they're going to be fast with a couple of old heads in there to guide them around. So I can't wait. And they'll be held together by Grace Maher and Laura Hughes in the middle, like they have been, like they were last season. So going to be very, very interesting. I'm going to look forward to watching it with Eric at Viking Park.
Did you say that now? Okay. By the way, also, news hot off the press. Well, kind of is
make me cry.
City announced Winona Heatley.
I knew it was going to happen, but it makes me cry.
Yes. Now, those of you that followed Tori Tumeth on Instagram found out a couple of days ago. But anyway, Winona Heatley. So Melbourne City, apparently they didn't have enough defenders. So they signed another one. Maybe we'll see a back 6 on Friday night at.
It'll definitely red hot attack versus a very solid defense this game. Yes. So we'll see who wins out.
Yes.
And in the midfields, they're looking quite balanced between the two. So looking forward to it.
But
it
also
definitely looks like the match of the round, I would say, on paper. I mean, there's some good matches that we'll see. I mean, we don't, it is hard to tell, but I think this one will be the match of the round. And I really like what Eric had to say about Emma Checker scoring. I'd love to see that. A friend of the pod, Emma Checker, who, if you haven't already listened to it, go back and listen to the episode where we talked to Emma about her plant-based diet, which was, for me, it was a great episode to listen to. But anyway, but I really like what Steffen has to say about the Canberra team, and Vicky Linton is a very smart operator. So I'm keen to see how that match goes. Eric, take us through more. Tell us all about this.
One more thing, just Steffen. What minute do you think Laura Hughes gets booked?
I think you're being a bit hard on Laura. I think she's evolved. She evolved.
So no translation issues on Friday? Is that what it is?
I think both she and Grace Maher, I wrote in my preview, which is being hopefully published tomorrow. I think they learned quite a bit from each other.
If you're nice to the editor.
Yeah. If the editor can finish it before he leaves for Canberra on Friday morning, yes.
Not that long. I think they learned from each other during the season last year. So I think they both learned some attributes from each other. So Grace has always been seen as the one with vision and a great touch and the ability to shoot. And Laura's always been known as a bit of a workhorse. But I actually saw them do a fair bit of each other's role last season, and both evolved their games in that way. So looking forward to seeing that combination evolve. And I don't think Laura got that many yellow cards last season. Eric will have to check that.
That many.
Oh, how quick? Let me see. Also, Eric, now that I'm being seriously, Laura Hughes also didn't get was very clean for Sydney University in this year's NPL up in Sydney.
There you go.
Laura Hughes, 3 yellow cards in. Oh, hang on. Let me check the semi as well. It is, wow, this is fascinating radio. 3 yellow cards in 13 appearances last season. And let me find out her Sydney Uni stats. But she may have restrained herself somewhat, which, of course, that'll be good because the one thing about a Canberra squad, not sure they can cop too many suspensions.
Yes, with the numbers they've got, it's a fairly skinny squad. I think you really think of Laura back in Iceland. She had a run in Iceland where she was picking up yellow cards willy-nilly. So
I love how Steffen's backing her up.
Yes. 1 yellow card in 11 games for Sydney Uni. She's like a whole new person. So
talking about yellow cards, let's talk about Sydney. And can we just give them all a yellow card to start off with, just because they play for Sydney?
No, that's why. Why would we do that?
Because, favourite teams and all that.
Here we go.
Sydney is probably.
No one's booking Courtney Vine on my watch. So, yes.
All right.
But yeah,
Sydney, I'll go through and put my tips in, which is, not knowing much about the squads necessarily, but Sydney will win this one. And I actually think that they'll win 4-0.
Ooh. So it's good you're not going up to Newcastle tomorrow, Cheryl. But this.
That's a good point.
Yes,
I'll publish this after the game, maybe.
Yes.
Speaking of Sydney, how good's Ellie Brushbone in her comms the last week or so? She's been fantastic.
She's quite the natural at many things.
Yeah.
So yes, that's one more thing that she's better at than the rest of us. Now, but Sydney, yeah, I agree. I think this will be a fairly comfortable win for Sydney FC, who are most of the key players from last year, some great additions as well. Who do I want to score in this one? Yes, of course, the great Sydney FC opening day tradition, a goal from Remy Simpson.
Hey, if anyone's new to the podcast as well, because we're on a couple of different platforms now, Eric does give us quite a lot of predictions, and they're not necessarily the predictions of the score, but they're predictions of who will score. And he is roughly 104% wrong.
Yes.
Roughly. So no, Eric, I shouldn't say that. You might be right occasionally, and Steffen can maybe bring me back to reality, but just letting people know that it is fun just to have a shout out for what we think is going to happen in the game. It's far more fun than just saying a straight result. Mm-hmm. Steffen, your thoughts on Sydney versus Newcastle?
Yeah, quite comfortable for Sydney, I think too. I'd have to agree there.
Yeah, I'm also Sydney. Sydney, I think it's between Sydney and Victory for 1 and 2. This season got, pretty solid, consistent squads, which they've, arguably improved on since last season. So, I think they should win this comfortably. But again, Newcastle have kept a fairly solid squad as well. So, they we'll see how their chemistry is going. They might have some good chemistry to start the season and might cause some issues, but we'll see. But I think Sydney comfortably.
So talking about solid, consistent squads, the next match that we've got on paper is Perth.
There's 2 teams with no solid, consistent squads. But
well, no, because Alex Aparkis has been working on this for quite a while, and I feel like he's had a solid squad. Kind of. Am I not right?
No, that's a lot of new. Let me count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah, not sorry.
15 new players.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm in my own world here. I mean, solid from the perspective of they were signed this season and they were signed a long time ago, as opposed to a solid squad of rolling and having the same players year on year.
Yeah. And in that you are absolutely correct. Quite appropriately for a man who used to coach Sydney University, Alex Aparkis did his homework very early and locked in most of these players, I think, by June, which was incredible. So I'm really looking forward to seeing them. They had the worst collection of circumstances last time around, Perth Glory, basically on a hiding to nothing. So now that he's actually been able to prepare and have a training session before Christmas Eve, I think I've obviously obvious bias here because I've observed his teams a lot when he was up in Sydney with Sydney Uni. But I think with all the young talent in this squad, Perth will go very well this season.
Where are they playing this match? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, do not apologize. It's not on the Keep Up website. Now, it our Perth correspondent Neil Bennett has snapped something on the scoreboard at a Perth men's game that apparently it will be at Macedonia Park, the home of local NPL club Sterling Lions. So that was on their scoreboard, but that is not official. So perhaps in true Dub tradition, maybe we'll find out in the 24 hours before the game.
Well, and it's interesting as well because Perth against Brisbane is maybe one of the few-ish games that will be able to take place in Perth based on current restrictions. Adelaide would no doubt be able to play there as well. But Madge, your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, well, I've got a keen interest, of course. So yeah, Perth, they've got their 23 people signed. So they've definitely got their full squad locked in, which you can't say the same for Brisbane. We've sort of lagged on our last few signings. So we're still just the 18 signed, unless there's been a late breaking news I've missed.
You're probably getting some really big ones are going to sign for you.
Well, you know, I'm always holding out hope. I'm like, surely like there's just going to be a couple of those US players who are just going to like hang around and decide they're going to sign. But
it's the excitement of the dub.
Yeah. But, you know, it really should be an interesting game. Like, I mean, I've only seen the Roar play the one game against the NPL sort of all-stars here, where I think that was their first sort of competitive hit out that they had. So, and of course, you know, Perth have been training together for a long time. So I think also having a lot of players from like the states that weren't playing so much NPL football, and he may be able to get players over and training a little bit earlier. I think I've heard that they've been training together for quite a while, whereas some of the other squads, like we've been heavily pulling from the NPL system here in Queensland, so sort of had to wait for the NPL season to be over before Gareth McPherson could get the team together. So it's an interesting one. I think for Brisbane this season, like I've talked about a lot, that I'm still waiting for some defensive backup after losing Claire Polkinghorne and of course Kim Carroll, who's back over at Perth this season. I think there's going to be a lot of responsibility on the shoulders of players like Jessie Rashout and also for Jamila Rankin, like being a young player, she played all of every game last season, and you know got a lot of got a lot of plaudits for her performances. But I think now it's going to see whether or not she can back that up, because she's going to be one of the key players, I think, for the Brisbane Roar in a less experienced backline. So be interesting to see how it goes. And I think a lot of Brisbane's fortunes will come down to like how well we've got some real guns in the forward line. Can they click? So Shay Connors, Larissa Cromer, Marielle Hecker and Meg McElligott. So they can absolutely put the ball away, every single one of those players. So it's whether or not our midfield can connect up. I'm not expecting Katrina Gorry to sort of be playing this first game over in Perth. I'm really interested to see how Ree Catano, so she's been really great in the NPL here in Queensland, a great solid midfielder. I think she might surprise a few people. I think she's consistently been sort of team of the week, team of the month, team of the season type player in NPL Queensland here. So I think our midfield looks quite good with her in there, but she has had an MCL injury as well. You'll tell I'm avoiding putting in a prediction.
Yeah, just like timing it. It's still going. She still hasn't said who she thinks will win.
Brisbane. I can't not go Brisbane. But I think it'll be a good game, and we'll see how these two very different squads are looking for the rest of the season.
Very nice. Nice overview as well. Steffen, your thoughts on that game? Oh, go, Eric.
Sorry, I forgot to predict. Obviously, I will struggle to tip against Alexa Parkis. Perth to win. Goal from Aideen Keane. On Ree Catano, based on the highlights package Brisbane posted when she signed, if she's fit, she'll be good for a couple of long-range bombs this season.
That'd be exciting. Steffen, what are you picking?
I'm really fascinated by this one, just by how different these teams are. Very pleased for Jessie Rashout. I've obviously watched her play in Belconnen for a few years here, so she's very reliable, strong, fast. So you won't go wrong with Jessie there in the back line there at Brisbane. 18 Keen was on fire over in Iceland too for KR. So for Perth, so I'm really looking forward to see if she brings that as well for Perth. So I think I might be going for Perth in that one, just slightly.
All right. Well, I haven't worked out who I'm going for, but a shout out to Neil Bennett for writing the preview for Perth Glory for us, and a shout out to Kerry Ann Dove, a new contributor for us, who's written a preview for Brisbane Roar. So really look forward to the game. And I do not know. Talking about things I do not know, we've next got Melbourne Victory against Adelaide United. Melbourne Victory won last year. I mean, we definitely have to put that out there and say it, but it was last year, and this year's a new season. Adelaide are the always coulda, shoulda, almost did, but didn't quite do it. And is this the year? And the thing about Adelaide is that they've spent year on year developing their system as well as developing their players. And could this be their time? And it would be a real shock for Melbourne Victory if they did go down. But I think Adelaide, and I hope Adelaide, could be really fighting yet again to be in that top four. But for this match, I do think Melbourne Victory will just be a smidge above them. And 2-0, I think it'll be a clean sheet.
Yeah, I'm happy to go. I think Victory, they've kept most of the players from last season. Jeff Hopkins, first person to be W League, A-League Women's Coach of the Year 3 times. So I think they'll be too good, especially as Adelaide have lost some key players. My goal prediction, I think Victory to win. My goal prediction, I want this to be true. Catherine Zimmerman, just because then we can then say going on the Beyond 90 pod helps you score goals. I think that's good for us if Zim scores.
I love it. Perfect logic. Who else?
Oh, look, I mean, I think Victory should be too strong. I mean, they've really got no excuses. I think they've got that solid squad. And like I said before, they're between them and Sydney, they're probably, I think, the front runners this season, but quite comfortably, unless some of these other teams come out blazing with amazing chemistry. So I think Victory have this, but I haven't put out a wild prediction. But you know what? I'm going to go 2-1, and I reckon Shadeen Evans might get on the score sheet for her new club.
What, Adelaide win?
Exciting.
No, 2. I think Victory will win 2-1.
Oh, Shadeen Evans. Okay.
I reckon, they'll get on the score sheet.
And Steffen, wrap us up.
Yeah, I agree. I think there'll be possibly one goal in it for Victory. We can expect Adelaide to be very cohesive and consistent again, but they've lost some of their high-profile players that were doing well for them last season. So, Victory for me to squeak it.
Let's talk Queens of the Week and wrap up and get ourselves out of here. Eric, your Queen of the Week.
Yes, so there's only one choice this week. My Queen of the Week is Blacktown's own Jessika Nash, the woman who captained her country at the age of 13 in Kyrgyzstan with the junior Matildas, made her senior Matildas debut on Saturday. She is still only 17. She, in fact, turned 17 last month. The future's bright. I hope this is the first of many senior caps. And in the more short term, the future, it looks good for Sydney FC, who she will be playing for starting from this weekend.
Madge, have you got one written down? And Eric did say he could change his mind when he's written down in the show notes who his Queen of the Week was. But Madge, for you?
Well, I mean, I of course can't go past Tameka Yallop in her 100th Matildas game. So it was great. She didn't get the win. It would have been nice and poetic for her to get a win versus the US, having scored that goal that got the Matildas our one and only win over the US previously. But what a stalwart, and still just an engine that just runs her heart out every game. Leaves it all on the park when playing for the Matildas. So fantastic to see her reach the 100th milestone.
Has she been able to catch up with her family yet? For the listeners out there, she's been separated from her wife and baby, who are based in New Zealand. I think they're waiting for the bubble to open up. I don't know if it has or not. And little Harley must be how old now?
A year and a bit, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It has been more than a year. Yes.
The first birthday.
Just really challenging. So shout out to Meeks. We really hope that you can get reunited with your family and you get to spend some quality time with them. Yeah. Steffen, give us your big happy Queen of the Week.
Yes, like every good Canberran, we're also excited about Ash Sykes returning to the fold. So, definitely at the Queen of the Week for a lot of people in this town, I reckon, this week. The announcement of her joining was just after the potty last week, I think. So, we've been celebrating all week. So with that, but a couple of little shout outs too. I'm so very proud too of Jessika Nash. Loved her work in the first half. Obviously took to her in a big way with her role with Canberra last year as well. So pleased to see her play with such poise, especially just after that first 25 seconds. Her next touch was a fantastic little piece of deception around a encroaching US attacker. So it was just lovely to see that she's got the confidence and the poise, and that'll take her far. So really good to see. And a bit of a shout out for Carly Rosbacken. So listen to her on
Wow, what a surprise. A shout out for Carly Rosbacken.
Yes, what a surprise. But it's been hard for Carly. She's been doing lots of media. She's been on the ABC radio. She's been speaking Matildas, and she hasn't made an appearance yet. The only outfield player who didn't get on the park. So really hoping she has a terrific run tomorrow night. So.
Yep, sounds good. Thanks very much for that, Steffen, and thank you to you all for your Queens of the Week. Nice to see that we don't have any jokers this time around. We didn't give a shout out to Courtney Nevin, and I thought Courtney Nevin had a pretty good game as well, and great to see her pace out there. I think that's going to be a real asset for us, and I think she was pretty courageous as well. But just to wrap up, I've got a couple of...
Sorry, Cheryl, I just need to point this out. Courtney Nevin, also from Blacktown. Go on.
All Matildas are from Blacktown is what Eric thinks. But anyway, I've got a couple of Queens of the Week. In fact, I've got 36,109 Queens and Kings of the Week. No jokers whatsoever. So thank you to all of the fans who went out and showed their love to the football match for the Matildas versus the USA. It was great for me personally to actually sit there and be part of that crowd. I don't know if the Wiggles were counted in those numbers or not. We can add a couple of extra potentially, but for me, the Wiggles were a bit weird to have in there. But I also wanted to give a massive shout out to the Matildas Active Support, who no matter where you were in the stadium, you could hear them, and they worked their tails off doing that. So big shout out to them for all of their hard work. It's a core bunch of people, and Madge probably knows much more about this than I do, but it's a core bunch of people who work actually really hard on and off the ball. So they go off and they do a lot of work sort of getting the, chants organised and songs and all sorts of things. So I could definitely hear you where I was. Eric, you said that you could hear them as well.
Yes,
so
and they were shocked that I could hear them.
Pub as well.
That's the most important thing. I'm looking forward to seeing them tomorrow.
Yeah. And look, really good effort. I'm sure if the borders were open a little bit more for the people in Queensland, that we would have had those numbers go up a little bit more as well, because who wouldn't want to go and see a match between Australia and the USA? Talking about matches between Australia and the USA tomorrow night. So depending on when you're listening to the podcast, let's just call it Tuesday night, 8:00 Australian Eastern Daylight Time. Pop on your TV. It'll be on Channel 10 and Paramount Plus. If you've got a subscription to Paramount Plus, then you can sort that out. And if not, should just be on Channel 10. So great pre-game conversations about the matches and lots of insight. Definitely take a listen to that. Thank you for listening to us on the podcast. On behalf of myself and the entire crew, couple of days until the dub, one more day until another match for the Matildas. What a year it's been. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.